Yeah? You're too shy. You're too quiet, Timothy. And Timothy's trying to be a pastor. Timothy, you have to be able to talk to somebody. But Timothy is given an axe, and his axe is that he's really good at studying. So there's something that God is giving you. Some people call this the calling on your life. There is a calling on your life. For some of us, it's being a parent. You know that your kids didn't pick you as parents? They are just stuck with you. So how will you treat that axe that you've been given? Will you make it the best possible axe? Moses does quite a bit with a stick. Will you take time to become a better parent? Will you take time to be the best parent, to get advice, to see parents that are doing well and going, help me? Will you take the time to do that? Maybe it's you're in a relationship right now. Are you a good boyfriend? Wow, silence, okay. We have some work. We've got a lot of work. Are you a good girlfriend? Be careful how you use your axe. For some of you, you're in the middle of a career right now. Or you're launching a business. You're an entrepreneur. You're actually changing the world. You know, that's kind of like a tricky thing that Christians talk a lot sometimes. They go, a Christian should not want success. Christians and business don't mix. Some people grab that text, the first shall be last, the last shall be first. They take it literally. It says, yes, Christians should always be last. You shouldn't want to be the best in sports. You shouldn't want to be the best in school. And yet, in the Bible, there is a culture of being excellent. There is a culture of a group of people. There's Nehemiah, who opportunities open, because it begins by telling us, and Nehemiah was a cupbearer. He had a career. He had worked at it. There's another one, Esther. She becomes queen. It tells us the mechanism. It says, when she was instructed in the beauty treatments, she excelled more than everyone else. In the scriptures, it never says, just float like a leaf. God will carry you. God will carry you through your math class. You don't have to do anything. God will do your parenting for you. No. It says, work at it. But okay, I know for some of you though, what you're doing right now is not your passion. Let's be honest. For some of you, what you're doing, you could even say that your life hasn't really started yet. You might say that. For some of you, school is, I can't believe I'm going to say this because I know there's some teachers here. For some of you, school is torture. Or you're in a job right now that honestly you're not excited about and the people are terrible. Can we say that? Can we be honest? Here's the deal, though, with that. Whatever it is that you're doing right now is directly related to your future self. However it is that you're doing the bad thing that you're doing right now, that is creating you into the person that you're going to carry into the future. Are you the person that shows up on time to your shift at McDonald's? Are you the person who can be trusted with small things? Can you be faithful with small things? Can you be faithful in the grind when you know that class you're taking in school has no practical bearing on life? Math. No, I'm sorry. Because here's the concept. You don't suddenly become someone else when you're given the opportunity of your life. You don't suddenly change into someone else. You can't suddenly say, when I get money, I'm going to start being generous. If you're not generous now, you will not be generous then. When I get the job I want, well, then I will start arriving early and leaving last. No, it happens right now. Say it with me. Would you like fries with that? Can change your life. There's a direct connection to it. But here's the main point of this text. There's one lesson that's just coming across. It says this, that you could work with your axe, you could work in your calling, and you're going to start getting diminishing results. that you could start working harder and you could actually start accomplishing less. That you could actually have worked even longer hours, and all you're getting now is exhaustion, anxiety, fear, and you have nothing to show for it. That means that something is missing. You're working harder. It means your axe is not sharp. There's no joy. Does that make sense? Your axe is not sharp. There's this lesson. I like this. It says, talent alone is not enough. And we said, some of you have really nice axes. It's just life. That's just how it works. Some of you can read something and it's memorized. Some of you can just lift things. Some of you were born like good looking and stayed good looking and you don't do anything. That's not in the message, okay? But it's here. Talent alone is not enough, because eventually, no matter how good you are, no matter how much you've been given, if you don't do something with that, it will go dull. It will not take you to the place that you were designed to go. So how do you sharpen an axe? It's friction. Friction. Whether you're using a file or a whetstone, I had to look these terms up, or an angle grinder, or however it is that you sharpen, it's going to be friction. You know friction? Friction is hard. Friction is not pleasant. When you look at today, you look at the leadership literature, because if you go into chapters or you go to some bookstore, you'll have this whole section on how to be a leader, how to succeed in work. And there's been scientific studies that are done over and over again that ask the question, so what actually does make a better leader? What actually does contribute to your success? And people ask, is it training? Is it a specific training? Is it self-awareness? Is it knowing about yourself? And all of that, and this is going to sound bad, barely works. There is this one factor that keeps showing up in study after study after study when you talk about literature, and it's this, leadership literature. The thing that actually makes you a better leadership is hard jobs. Difficult opportunities. The best one is called early failures. If you've been given things in your life that have been more difficult that you can handle, that's actually making you sharper. That's the friction that you need. If you're failing every once in a while, you're going in the right direction. The study done, I don't know if you've heard it takes 10,000 hours to become the best in the world at something. Have you guys heard that? Kind of the top performers. It's for athletes, for whatever you want to call it. And people say, oh, okay, so all I have to do is do something for 10,000 hours. And that's not actually true. You have to do what's called deliberate practice for 10,000 hours. They actually take a couple of students, violin people, and in violin world, you can either be a maestro or you can be a violin teacher. I'm not knocking violin teachers. I can't do anything. But there's the realm. They said, how much are they practicing? They were both practicing the same amount. It had to do with how they were practicing. Deliberate practice was the ones that are the maestros, they practice on the edge of failure. They only do things that are too hard for them, that are a little overwhelming. And that's the sweet spot. And they grow and they triumph and they become the best in the world. So what is it we're talking about? Sharpening has to do with discipline. This is a quote I heard. Hank Fortner says this. He says, discipline is doing the things others don't want to do, so later you can do the things that others cannot do. There's this really disturbing passage in the scriptures, and then we'll move on to the next point. It's kind of one of my favorites. It's nestled in Joshua chapter 3, verse 2. It says this, and this is talking about growth. Joshua chapter 3, 2 says, he did this. It says that when the Israelites were established in the promised land, that they were surrounded by enemies, that God didn't remove the enemies, that God didn't remove the obstacles or the hardship. And it says this, he did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites who had not previous battle experience. If you read King James, it says that they would know war. So there's this concept that right now is your time to be running into early failure. Right now is your time to be hitting struggle, because that's actually how you grow. Failure is how you move forward. But anyway, the goal of this verse is to cut down a tree. The goal of this verse is not just to have a sharp axe. Doesn't matter if you have a sharp axe. The goal of life is to cut down that tree. So this summer we did a little bit of traveling. We saw some of these ancient forests. And you can go to them today, and they're just these massive trees. And when you look at them, they'll have like these notches, like about 5 feet high. Some of them are kind of 20 feet high. And the process was to cut a tree like down. You would go in with your axe. It would be a 2 or 3 man team. This is before machinery could really get into this. We're talking the places in the redwoods, the Pacific Northwest. And they would go with their axe, and they would go over like the big part of the tree, which is called the basal swells. You didn't need to know that. I just wanted to feel smart. Anyway, the basal swells, and you put these giant boards. They're called springboards. And they would stand on these, and then they would start with the axe whacking away at the tree. And the idea is to cut out a pie shape on the front face of the tree. This process could take more than a week. So you would show up to work, cutting a giant redwood, and you would just whack at it all day. You would look at it at the end of the day, and you have no idea if you've made any progress. If you're lucky today, you can go there and you could find the mound where the wood chips used to be. And it's huge, and it's just 2 guys with an axe. And once you've gotten that pie shape out, then you actually have to go down where you think the tree will fall, and you clear everything, because redwoods are very fragile, and when they break, if they hit anything, it's broken. You can't use it as a board anymore. So you have to spend the rest of your time clearing out that part of the forest where you think the tree will fall. And then finally, you go to the back of the tree and you use a 2-man saw. And again, on the springboards, going back and forth. There were easier ways to make a living, I think. And you go, and to cut down a tree, the average time is usually about 2 weeks. 1 tree. And these guys are working, and the tree would fall down. And when you see pictures of these trees coming down, the picture is always of the tree about to fall. Because people love the end result of the tree coming down. The most exciting part is when you're graduating from something. The most exciting part is when you see a display of excellence. When you see a musician that just blows your mind. When you taste what a chef has cooked, it just blows your mind. That's our favorite part. But what we're missing is the continuous repetition. The embarrassing failures along the way. Whacking at the tree over and over again. Seeing almost no results over and over again. Here's the question I want to leave with you. Do you have a good tree right now? I do. Good. Our tree died actually, buddy. Anyway, do you have a good tree that you're working at? I really had to think about this. And I think one of my passions has been to become a communicator. I love communicating. And here's what you don't know. Here's what you don't know. Part of being a communicator is you have to know how to write. There's no way around it. You have to know how to write. And writing has been one of those things that has been so difficult for me. You don't believe me, but in high school, I didn't quite pass English. And then in college, I didn't quite pass English. It's one of these things that's one of my deepest struggles, things that I have to work at, that I have to show up. By the way, I married someone who's very good at English. English teacher, there you go. But anyway, that's beside the point. But it's something that I had to work at. When the pandemic hit and we wanted to communicate, we still wanted to communicate, we had to learn how to do video. We did a little bit before, but all of a sudden you had to learn. What I'm saying is, whatever your passion is, are you willing to show up and do the work? And sometimes people ask, so how do you do their messages? Because I've calculated in a year, I'm doing about 140 messages. And people ask, how do you come up with the content? What you need to know is you need to go in a time machine. When I was like 12 years old, 14, 15 years old, and just hear terrible messages. That's the process. How do you get to a good message? Many, many bad messages. How do you get to good writing? Many, many, many bad sentences. That's always how it worked. And the dedication of saying, if I want something, I'm going to put the work in. I'm going to develop my craft. Our mission here at Epic Church, we want to be the proof of God to the world. We want to commit to doing things that consistently scare us and challenge us, that are outside of us. And here at Epic, by the way, we want our culture from the front, what you see up here, we want you to see us fail all the time. We want this to be a culture where growth is more important than excellence. Because when you see excellence, you're like, oh, you either have it or you don't. That's not how it works. We're going somewhere where if you want to be perfect, this is not the place for you. We are going to get a whole lot worse so that we can all get better. That is our culture. That's what we work. And in the scriptures, you have hard work happening all on Daniel and his friends. We have that story where they say they get their grades 10 times better than everyone else. They study for that. Imagine that. They study for it. There's this phrase, an author, McManus, says this: eventually, hard work and perseverance will be confused for talent. Oh, man. So as we start this new year, this is what I want you to walk away with. As we start this new year, what's your axe? Are you taking the time to sharpen it? Are you working on your craft? Are you willing to put the work in? That's what we have in the scriptures. But there's another aspect I want to leave with you with this story. This will be the last point. And it's kind of obvious, but we don't really think about it. It's this: you can't sharpen the axe while you're cutting the tree. Even if you're falling behind on cutting trees, you can't sharpen the axe at the same time. This verse is alluding to this concept that you have to stop. That you have to have some self-care. The scriptures have a name for that. It's called Sabbath. That you were built to live in a rhythm of Sabbath. That you're meant to work, that you're meant to strive, but then you need to stop. Then you need to pause. You need to find restoration. The scriptures say you need to find a way to connect with others. That gives you life. And to connect with God. You need to have some rhythm in your life because I haven't thought of this before, but if you don't have a rhythm of Sabbath in your life, and I'm not talking just about the seventh day. I'm talking in every day. If you don't have a rhythm, you actually can't have a spiritual life. Because this means that somewhere in the day, you're going to intentionally stop. And unless you have that quiet time, you cannot have a spiritual life. Because spiritual life begins with that pause. Spiritual life begins when we stop. Even though we're falling behind cutting trees, even though everyone is screaming at us, even though the world is going crazy, you have to stop and have that rhythm and Sabbath. Because you might be starting this year and saying, this is the year when I cut the tree. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to show up earlier, leave later than everyone else. But if you don't have Sabbath, if you're not pausing intentionally, eventually you're going to crack. Eventually, everything will fall apart. Because that's not how you were designed to live. You were designed to Sabbath. So, 2022, it's already here. It's happening. This is how we're launching our year. Sharpen your axe. Fail a little more this year. And enjoy the rhythm of Sabbath. I'll call the worship team back up. just ask for a blessing over everyone here, Lord. May we leave refreshed, eager to create, and eager to experience that full life that you have for us. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you for coming. Have a happy Sabbath. And we'll see you tonight at 5. In my wrestling, in my doubts, in my failures, you won't walk out. Your red love will lead me through. You are peace in my troubled seas. You are the peace in my troubled seas. In the silence, you won't let go. In the questions, your truth will hold. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled seas. Oh, you are the peace in my troubled seas. My lighthouse, shining in darkness, I will follow you, Lord. Safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to shore. I don't fear what tomorrow brings. When each morning I'll rise and sing. My God's love will lead me through. You are peace in my troubled sea. You are peace in my troubled sea. My lighthouse, shining in darkness, I will follow you, Lord. My lighthouse, I will trust your promise. You will carry me safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to Fire before us, you're the brightest. You will lead us through the storm. Fire before us, you're the brightest. You will lead us through the storm. Fire before us, you're the brightest. You will lead us through the storm. Fire before us, you're the brightest. You will lead us through the storm. My lighthouse, shining in the darkness, I will follow you, Lord. My lighthouse, I will trust your promise. You will carry me safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to shore.